And now, ladies and gentlemen, I invite our last speaker for this evening, Mr. Anirban Ghosh, Chief Sustainability Officer with the Mahindra Group, to the stage. Under his leadership, Mahindra has developed an award-winning sustainability framework, becoming a founding member of the Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition and the first to commit to doubling energy productivity. He has, in partnership with the World Bank, facilitated the creation of the Sustainable Housing Leadership Consortium to accelerate the speed of green buildings in India. Anirban has been an invited speaker at COP21, the Climate Week, World Circular Economy Forum, GRI Global, EE Global, etc., featured in the Climate Reality Project and acknowledged as a distinguished sustainability officer. Mr. Ghosh will be sharing his ideas on the subject of rural futures, nature capital with us today. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Anirban Ghosh on stage.
So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's past 6 o'clock now. It's been a long day for you. And there's been a lot of very fantastic conversation right from the morning. Amongst the things that we've discussed today, some of the topics that were clearly very engaging and very important to discuss was the possible trade-off between sustainability, population, development. And there was a lot of conversation on whether this is indeed a trade-off or is there a way by which we can leverage sustainability for development. Now, the people in the conference are a very interesting group of people because during the day it was very clear to us that there are many of the people here who are actually making things happen. So this is not a room where we should be discussing, is it important? And this is not a room where we can say that nothing is happening. Clearly, a lot is. But even if a lot is happening, let us ask the question then, what is it that's going to happen in the future? Now, I don't know how many of you have seen Guwahati for a period of, say, 30 years or 40 years till now. And there is this road that used to come from the airport to this hotel. It was wonderful. It was green all over. It was a pleasure to drive down that road. You would have driven down that road yesterday or today. I don't think you saw too much green. And that's probably because the population of Guwahati has doubled in the last 6 years' time. And as it has doubled over the last 6 years' time, and the effects are visible today, we know that this population is going to continue increasing. So if it continues increasing, what will happen 10 years from now? What sort of Guwahati are we going to see? When you step out of this room and you look out from the veranda, you can see lovely hills. It's a relevant question to ask, how long will these hills be there? Well, perhaps, the only way that the hills can be there is if the trees are gone and there are people living on the sides of the trees so that you can't bulldoze those hills anymore. But I don't think that's quite the solution that we're looking for. But why am I talking to you about Guwahati when we are discussing rural futures? Well, here's the reason. 70% of India is known to live in rural India. The numbers are dwindling fast. In a few years' time, 60% of India will be living in urban India, in places like Guwahati. Villages and towns will become bigger, population will increase. And these are the places where you and I and our colleagues and brothers outside will work very hard to ruin natural resources. And all the conversations you had on water, all the conversations you've heard on sanitation, all of that, unfortunately, today points towards the possibility of a dystopian reality in the future and not quite a reality that we really want to make happen. So what will we do? Are we saying that we are destined for further chaos, or is there a possibility of bringing order into all this mess? Consider this. We know today that the population will double of Guwahati in, say, if not 6 years, then maybe 8 years' time. We know that development is coming into the Northeast. We know that this is the part of the country where forest cover is actually going down, even though overall government statistics say that forest cover in the country has gone up marginally. Well, why can't we do this then? What if we were to say that we know this city is going to double in size? Let's just put a boundary on the sort of mess that we've created today. Let development be the way it's going on within the boundaries. But outside this, we are going to create another Guwahati, which will cater to as many people in 10 years' time as it caters to today, but will be a model city where all the wonderful things we know about urban development, about nature conservancy, about the way of handling water and sanitation and transportation and everything can be put together. If we don't put a border around the mess, it's almost like saying that we have a cancer and we will let the cancer progress. And the thing is, it's not going to be about one Guwahati. In our country, there are going to be at least 100 cities with 1 million+ population, all of which will be going in the same direction. And if we have a worry on natural resources, these are the places where natural resources are going to hit the most. Will you and I, many of us travel around in India, we go to these lovely places which are near the forests. Will you and I tell the places where we are staying that, hey, we don't want loud music for entertainment. It's okay. We'll find some other form of entertainment. We've come to the forest. We are quite happy to hear the sounds of the birds and the bees and the insects and so on. We don't want loud music in the evening. But if today you were to go to a resort which is near any one of our forests, you will possibly find some fantastically loud music happening in the evening, all in the interest of entertaining you and me and in the hope of pulling us back into that resort or that area again in the future. And I dare say we have resorts from Mahindra as well, near the forests, and we are guilty of things which are very similar. But I can tell you that the conversation has started that even if other resorts in the area resort to entertainment of this kind, we will try and curb it at our resorts, irrespective of what the members say. Because there is no way you can be beside a natural reserve and you create the sort of noise that kind of drives animals away, and next morning at 6 o'clock you want to see a tiger. It's ridiculous. But why does all this happen? All of this happens because whether you're in business or you're in society or you're an average human being, you basically say that nature is free, that I can do whatever I want with it because it's there. And till the time there weren't too many of us, population levels were lower, and we hadn't cut down too many trees and too many hills, nature was providing more than what we could use up. But that's not the case anymore. You just heard about the Earth Overshoot Day and so on. What if there was the possibility that nature would give us an invoice and would charge us for the services that we were using from nature? It's not a very fantastic concept, really. This is the conversation that's happening with corporations around the world about natural capital valuation. Well, what is the cost of the natural resources that a corporation is using, and how should it be valued into its profit and loss statement or in its balance sheet, as the case may be? If not that far, then how does a corporation mitigate the costs or the harm that it is causing to the environment in the course of conducting its business? We could turn around and, like many activists, say that, oh, you're a bad people, you do this to the environment and so on. But the fact of the matter is that's the only way human beings have known how to do business in the past. Technologies have been of a certain kind. So rather than berate them for what they have done in the past, we would much rather look at more sustainable ways of doing business in the future. And how would one do that? Well, it actually gives us a great opportunity to reboot business, to do business in a different way. And what is this different way, really? Well, business has always tried to be enduring. I mean, nobody sets up business to shut it down. But it's difficult to be enduring, even when you're not looking at the environment. Because if you look at all these lists of the Forbes 500 companies and so on, or the Fortune 500, beg your pardon, you do find that the members of the list keep changing rapidly. So building enduring business is not easy anyway. But the new reality is that you have to build enduring business while rejuvenating the environment and enabling stakeholders to rise, because you can no longer take nature for granted, nor can you ride roughshod over communities. You've heard enough examples of how businesses have been shut down because of the impact they've had on environment or the chaos they've created in the community. Those examples are few and far between as of now, but as the regulations come in, as awareness increases, one can expect more examples of businesses experiencing discontinuity because of the fact that they are not being, well, nice, let's say, to the environment or to the communities. So within the Mahindra Group, we worked on a definition of what we thought would be sustainable business for the future. And we said we will look at building enduring business while rejuvenating the environment and enabling stakeholders to rise. And then, of course, that gave us 3 pillars of work, all of which we have programs to try and make an impact. Let me just share 3 examples with you. There was this thing about building green businesses, and the group has actually invested in a number of businesses which enable climate action and help rejuvenate the environment. The examples that you see on screen include renewable energy, they include electric cars and electric scooters and shared mobility and green buildings, and also a business to micro-irrigation and a business to responsibly recycle vehicles and cars. There's another one which is not on the chart, which is to use waste and convert it to energy and ensure that nothing goes to landfill and doesn't end up polluting our water bodies. Now, these are actions that any corporation can take, but if these actions have to happen at a very large scale, you need businesses that can help build the scale. And this is why the Mahindra Group is looking at these businesses as businesses of the future, because they help rejuvenate the environment and will help build enduring business for the future. Today, the Mahindra Group is about a $20 billion group, $20, $21 billion, depending on what the exchange rates are. The potential of the businesses that we have entered in the climate change space is in excess of $100 billion. So even if we were to get a 10% share of that $100 billion business, likely to increase in the future, one would suspect that the future of a $20 billion business group is likely to be sustainable. And that's the perspective one looks at when you are trying to build enduring business while rejuvenating the environment. That said, there is a big case to be made for ensuring that we help achieve the Paris Agreement and become net neutral by the second half of the century. So to do that, there is a lot of energy efficiency and there's a lot of renewable energy, but there will still be some emissions that the business will have, unless, of course, there are miracle technologies that come about. And to offset those emissions, one has to work with the one thing that really takes carbon out of the air, which is planting trees. And our program there is called Mahindra Haryali. And right now, the running rate is about 2 million trees per year. Last 10 years, we've done about 15 million trees. As of now, we haven't taken credit for any of the carbon that's been absorbed for the trees. But having made the commitment that we will be carbon neutral by 2040 as a group, we will probably have to look at some amount of offsetting through the Mahindra Haryali program. So green businesses, the Haryali program to rejuvenate the environment is one example, and then there's the community. And here I would like to share with you and it's appropriate that it's happening after the session on water, the possible impact of watershed development in our country. From the experience we've had in implementing a few projects in watershed development in partnership with the government, it is quite clear that harnessing water is the single largest lever for avoiding water scarcity in our country. We actually get more precipitation than we need, even counting for our current population and the increasing needs of a urbanizing country. Even if you account for all of that, we still get more water than we need. It's just that because of the way we have done our agriculture and built our cities, the runoffs have increased exponentially. So if we are able to harness the water, we will solve 80 to 90% of the problem. And you add on micro-irrigation for agriculture, not using fresh water for thermal power plants or construction, using recycled water wherever possible, and we will be more than adequate in terms of water availability. But the sad story is that the work that we do in watershed development is so on and off that even though we know that it is a tool that can help us, we've had 30 or 40 years of experience, we know how to do it very well, we've seen the impact, we are still unable to say that we've got a program going which will help us cross the line. But watershed development is not only about water. In a 5-year period, when working on about 10,000 hectares of land, 20,000 people in 32 villages, we found that integrated watershed development helped double per capita income. If that is not development, then what is? And if that is not helping build a community where the stakeholders are enabled to rise because their income is doubled, they're able to pursue things, they're able to plausibly look at better education for their children, access better health care. To my mind, there isn't a single development program in the country that does this and does this so well. Having said that, despite all the watershed development that's happening now, despite all the action that's being taken, it's clearly not enough. There is a lot more to be done. You've heard of a lot of good examples of good work that are being done in the country, being done in the Northeast today. But this is not enough. If we want to make a difference, this has to reach a scale which you and I can't even dream of today. And the only way we can reach that kind of scale is to set programs in place like the one we sort of discussed about cities, about saying that, okay, this much is a mess, outside this nothing will be a mess. About adopting ways of handling water, about ways of handling waste, of rejuvenating our rivers. I understand, I don't know whether the gentleman is here right now, but people from the Tata Consulting Engineers have worked with the Rajasthan government to revive a river that runs through Jaipur. It's one of those classic cases where a river existed in a city, gradually became a sewage canal, and then nobody knew the name of the river anymore. Most of the kids didn't even know that there was a river in the city. They've been able to revive that. Lieutenant General said the Meethi cannot be revived. Well, that's another case of a river becoming a sewage canal, which most of us don't even know was a river. There's the Buckingham Canal in Chennai. There's the Adi Ganga in Calcutta. Every single city of us, which actually grew up because of these channels of water, have managed to ruin these water bodies in a manner which is unspeakable and unthinkable. If we are able to revive these channels of water, much like what's been done in Manila with their stream of water, which is so beautiful now, which used to be a complete nala, a sewage canal some time ago, then there is a possibility that we will all rise for good. Thank you very much.
All right, so can we have some questions to come in? Ladies and gentlemen, as I have already stated that we have almost inched towards the climactic part, so let's end this conference, the day one of Eastern Himalaya Naturonomics Forum 2018 with some wonderful questions to come in from Mr. Anirban Ghosh.
Hello, this is Anil Kumar. I had spent a few years working with livelihood, and as part of livelihood initiatives, we had actually worked with water as well. The problems of water is well known. Whether it is in rainfall runoff, rainwater runoff, or surface water or groundwater, well documented challenges are there. But what is the operational solution that we have that you and me can implement at our personal level and also influence our organizations that we are involved in?
Great question. Okay, so do you want the list? Here are some simple ones. If you have a tap at home, put an aerator in it. It reduces the flow by 30 to 40%. You don't need more water than that to wash your hands. All of us have a water closet at home. Most of us don't have those two buttons. One button releases less water into the flush from the flush, and the other one releases more water. You know what is required when, I don't have to tell you. So if you can do that, great step. Okay. If you are, irrespective of whether you are in an independent house or you are in an apartment complex, rainwater harvesting is easy to do. Figure out a way of getting rainwater harvesting done. If you cannot store the water, no problem, just have it put back into the aquifers or into the groundwater. Most of us get our water from bore wells. At least those bore wells will get recharged. Very easy things to do within the house. While consuming water, we've actually gone from, I know many of you would have possibly had bathrooms where you had to use a bucket to have water. And if you've done well in life, now you have a shower, which means you possibly use 10 times more water to have one bath than you did before. Nobody's stopping you from using a bucket, right? It works. So while I'm not saying you have to take up all inconveniences in life, that's an easy way to save water. If you don't want to go that far, shut the tap while you're brushing. That's what the American kids are being asked to do today. Use a mug while you're shaving. You really don't need running water from a tap to wash that razor of yours. These are very easy ways to save water. Just to give you a sense, the amount of water a person uses in urban India is about 4 times the per capita amount compared to rural India. And all the methods that I told you are more than enough
for you to bring your water footprint down by at least half, if not more.
It's a good place.
It's a good place to start. Not easy, but a good place to start.
I have followed on that.
Sure.
General actually mentioned that our per capita consumption for an average Indian is about 80 liters a day. For the urban populations, 4 times is the figure. In my estimate, it could be anywhere between 200 to 500 liters a day, which actually means that in a year, you could actually be consuming princely the multiple, which is a fabulous number. We are all, 100% of these people in this room must be water negative, all of us, without exception. Is there a decision, individually and collectively, to make ourselves water positive? Is it possible for this summit to take a pledge at the end of the day, to day 2, that we individually and collectively will become water positive?
The bad news is that this is a personal decision. Nobody can make, I don't think any one of us can make any one of you use less water if you don't want to. It becomes a very personal decision. It becomes community decision when you run out of water. So, you know, Cape Town almost ran out of water. So I was with a lady from Cape Town 24 hours ago maybe, and she was saying how they now get 50 liters of water per head in a day, and apparently it's more than enough. So it comes down to a way of thinking where you think that nature is free. You don't get an invoice for it. You use a natural resource because it exists. It's only when you don't have enough that you figure out ways of doing with less. Water probably is the biggest one of the lot. So much as I would want a situation where someone would turn around and say, okay, at least members of this conference will become water positive from a year from now or 6 months from now, the decision, unfortunately, is very personal.
What I wanted to say is that why can't we ask the local media, the TV channels, to just publicize what you said just now about saving water at home?
Yes, we could do that. It's not as if they don't have programs on this, but it gets drowned out by all the other nonsense that comes on
Doesn't matter.
the channel.
Doesn't matter. Because once it gets repeated over and over again, I'm sure there is somebody at home, particularly the housewife, who's going to drive it into their kids and the husbands who do the shaving, isn't it?
Right. Field marshals of the day, please listen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm sure it's going to work, and if this foundation takes that initiative forward, it will be half the job done and well begun, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, in the last two editions of this conference, we actually had a water pledge at the end of the sessions. And then many of us are returning members. I wonder if, we are sticking to the pledges we made during the last 2 years. Thank you.
Anirban, may I just come
Yes,
up?
Shankar, of course.
So first, thank you very much. As it's always a delight. I don't know, I've listened to you so many times, but every time it's a delight. So thank you very much for
You're
that.
kind, Shankar.
Just a question, especially from a corporate viewpoint. What we know is that with population and affluence increasing, consumption is going to increase, and therefore on natural resources. Now, for that to balance, clearly people like you and I need to consume less. Now, how does a company which makes money by selling more actually find a way to actually tell its consumers consume less? Is that even possible?
Shankar, you as usual touch upon an issue which is deeper than what the question seems to be. Perhaps the biggest ponderable in this conversation on sustainability is how do you change lifestyles to have consumption as required and not consumption as desired. We could even push it back to the other isms of socialism and communism and capitalism and so on, because that conversation is embedded in those kinds of thought. What can I say? I mean, we know that as a country develops, or as a civilization develops, consumption rates go up, wastage goes up, and responsibility sort of gives way to convenience. And here in India, we want to do it differently. It's not easy because you and I have also grown up wanting to be, having lifestyles like the ones that we've seen in Western Europe and the United States. And all of a sudden, we've become ambassadors of a lifestyle which is different. And to tell your kids that, especially kids who have grown up post-liberalization, who have not seen scarcity, who have not seen water shortage, who have always had electricity at home, to tell them that, resources are scarce, it's difficult for them to believe. So all I can say is it's a difficult question. The conversation has started. I was very happy actually this last Climate Week in New York to hear that the conversations actually started in countries like Germany and the United States and so on. Hopefully we'll make some progress. There is nothing better than scarcity to really drive change in this direction. In fact, when we were looking at micro-irrigation to use water better in agriculture, and we were talking to farmers that, you will get higher productivity, we found that 95% of adoption of technology happened when there was either scarcity of water, or scarcity of labor, or scarcity of electricity. Less than 5% of adoption, and by adoption I'm alluding to behavior change, happened because of a better future. So clearly, scarcity is the best driver of behavior change. So maybe if we let the problem get worse, we'll get better behavior change. So on that happy note, shall we? Thank you very much.